This is an Academy Roadrunner that I picked up secondhand. 2 chassis, 1 shell, 1 motor, and a personality best described as abandoned. Let's bring it back. The first protocol was to get the car running properly, and I noticed it didn't have a steering servo fitted, but it did have all the steering rack equipment. I also had a nice sprue with all the other servo savers that might come in handy with the appropriate servo. My first thought was to borrow the servo from this scrapped HSP Mini Mean Green. I also knew that this one happened to work. So I took it out, well, I wrestled with it until it finally gave up, and then set it aside in case I decided to use it on the project. Then I remembered that there was a bag of screws and I think possibly a servo, turns out it was, that actually came in the box when I got it, but I'd taken them out and put them in my parts drawer, so I went and hunted for that and grabbed that one out too. Upon inspection it had the right servo saver already mounted, yay! So as long as it worked, I just used that. I connected a small battery up to my servo tester so I could make sure that the original servo worked, and if it didn't, well, I'd swap over for the other one. But you wouldn't read about it, the original one worked, so I went with that. I put the original servo saver back on and went to mount it up, and lo and behold, there were no servo mounts, so I had to borrow them from the other chassis. I did loosely fit the mounts so I could wiggle around the servo to try and line everything up, and I thought once that was mounted then I could tighten the screws later. And there you have it, a rare moment of precision in the DadSpecRC workshop. Next up was the body. Old ABS gets brittle, and this one was holding itself together through sheer willpower. As I want to preserve some of the patina, the plan is to clean the shell with IPA in the sensitive areas and then solvent weld it back together. I used a cotton bud soaked in IPA to clean the cracks on the outside and the inside of the shell. I brushed over all the cracks with some Tamiya extra thin cement which wicks in and then melts the plastic back together. I did that on the inside and the outside. After I'd solvent welded the shell back together, I decided to make an ABS slurry out of this old 3D printer filament, and that would reinforce the cracks. The first step in making the slurry is to cut off some filament into some small pellet-sized pieces. I was lucky that I had this off-whitish coloured filament spare. I put some of the pieces into a small, appropriately sized glass container. Don't use plastic because the acetone you use will melt it. With both garage doors open, I added approximately 10 milliliters of acetone to the container. Then it's a matter of mixing it around and letting it settle for a couple of hours to dissolve. You might need to add more ABS or you might need to add more acetone. I just waited till it looked like off-brand yogurt and the mere sight of it made me feel sick. When it resembled the right consistency, I got a brush that I didn't want to keep for later on and simply glooped it on over the cracks and then set it aside to dry. While the shell was off drying, I dropped in a Surpass Hobby ESC that I already had. Motor wires, receiver lead, double-sided tape, all the classics. Simple and effective. The battery cover on this model is the same as the Tamiya Hornet, but unlike the Tamiya Hornet, it was missing. So I printed one. Black PETG, not by design, it's just what was already loaded in the printer. It did need a bit of sanding, which is how you know it's a genuine DadSpec print. The Roadrunner didn't come with a rear wing, and unlike all the other similarities between the Hornet and the Grasshopper doesn't have a wing, and the Hornet wing doesn't fit. So I had to design one and print it in yellow PETG. It took 7 attempts to get one that worked, and then 8 attempts to get one that I actually liked. I will link the files in the description. You can download it on Thingiverse if you have the same problem. But eventually, I did get one off the printer looking acceptable enough to go on the car. Please note, this is not the final version. This version is version 6, I think, and the holes are too far back in the wing. It has separate mounting blocks, which makes it too difficult to mount, and the angle is nowhere near right. But they are all things that are corrected on the final version that you can download from Thingiverse. Next, I installed a used FlySky 2.4 GHz receiver and bound it to my multi-model transmitter. No issues, no binding failures. Miracle. Once the shell had cured and the wing was mounted, everything went back together for the final bench test. Steering centred, throttle smooth, electronic stable, and nothing exploded, which means the Roadrunner officially lives again. So, with a borrowed servo mount, welded ABS, a homemade battery cover, 8 wings later, a modern radio system, the Roadrunner is back in action. So, next video, maybe we'll take it for a shakedown run. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.